Hello, today we're at the Zephyrhills Museum of Military History in Zephyrhills, Florida. This is a small museum. It's a nonprofit. The building is the former infirmary for an air base that only operated for about a year in 1944. Trained about 200 airmen that participated in the invasion of Normandy. But it is small but mighty. During a recent visit, the director, Cliff Moffett, toured us around and told us about the museum, introduced us to many of the guys that work there. Cliff, tell us a little bit about how this place runs.
Yeah, we're all retired.
Really?
Most of us are. We do have a couple of younger people, which is great.
And how many members do you have?
I think we probably have 8 members.
8 members?
Yeah.
And you run the whole thing with 8 people?
Yep, we're only open on Saturdays, so it's only one day a week. But it is, and we're all volunteers. There's no paid positions here at all. You know, it's a great group though. So this was the infirmary, but it didn't look like this on the inside or the outside. The outside was only tar paper. It was only meant to be used one time, and that was it. So it wasn't heavy duty. But after the war, 3 doctors came into this building, and that's probably when it started being sectioned off and getting better. Because 3 doctors, we've had people coming here from town and says, "Oh, I went to Dr. Such and Such in that building," you know. So a lot of people in the town, they do have memories of this building, of somehow coming in and out of this building.
When did it become a museum?
1997.
97.
Yeah, that's when it got moved here. The Army Air Corps was gone after World War II. Became its own entity of the Air Force here. I think 1948 is when it became the Air Force.
And I understand some of the people who trained here were involved in air support for the Normandy invasion.
Yes, they were. They I'll show you the group. We do have the group picture here.
And how many, so I don't have to count them. Do you have any idea how many people trained here?
You look at that there. There's 40, 80, 120.
I'll come back and count them.
Yes, there you go.
I can add them up.
But it was only one group only.
And
they trained in P-40s. So that's what they trained in.
Okay.
And these are all black and white pictures that they took while they were here.
And when was the base established, the Army Air Corps base?
1943.
Okay, so it was only a couple of years in existence.
Well, really, only one group here. It was more probably towards the middle of 43, and they were gone before D-Day, which was in June 6th of 44. So they were here less than a year.
Holy cow.
Yep, so it was only one group. They were out of Orlando, and they just needed more space. And this year was already an established airport, so they just came in here and took over Zephyrhills Airport. Of course, they make it a lot better than it was.
Guys who trained here are gone?
As far as we know, they are. We've had relatives come in here, and because that was a very common picture, but nobody has all the names. So they come back here, or I'll send them. They'll say, "Hey, do you have the names of the guys?" So I'll take pictures and send them pictures. But everybody has the picture, but they don't have the listing of the names. So that's what's very unique about that one there.
How did you compile that?
Well, they had a reunion, and they ended up down here for part of their reunion. And then that's where they gave us all the pictures and all the names of everybody.
Okay.
So they have been here since as a reunion. So we have unique stuff here. It's like this gentleman here was on a Bataan Death March. And I don't know, you know what the Bataan Death March was? Yes, 10,000 guys died on that march. I think the march, if I remember correctly, was about 57 miles. Well, these are letters written to the family saying, "We believe your son's on this march is going to the prison camps in Manila," which he was. But the last letter states there, "We believe your son died of dysentery in a prisoner of war camp," and he did. So those are letters from the government to try to make sure that, you know, keep the family at ease, that we know where your son's at, don't worry about it. And then the last letter says, "We believe he died of dysentery," and he did. So that's him in his uniform when he joined. That's his grave in Manila. That's his high school graduation class. That is his Purple Heart. That's the one that was given to the family. So that is his Purple Heart. It's not a reproduction. It's got his name on the back. And it's got the letter here, the Purple Heart.
Were they a local family?
No, they weren't. They just came in here. I was just talking to them somewhere, and he said, "What would you do if we gave you this?" I said, "I'll put it on display. It will stay on display." Because, like I said, a lot of museums don't have the stories. You know, they'll have somebody who was on a Bataan Death March, but to have the stories from the government from the beginning to the end and everything in between is phenomenal.
And what was his name?
His name, Wilford West.
Wilford West. All right.
Yeah, and like this, we have cemeteries all over the world. People don't realize how many national cemeteries we have in every different country. Now, this ship here is very unique. It's the USS Phoenix. It was at Pearl Harbor. This gentleman here was on it during Pearl Harbor and fought through the whole war. What's unique about the USS Phoenix there, it was anchored out in Pearl Harbor, so it wasn't one of those ships that was targeted. So it didn't get attacked because it was anchored all by itself. So they went after the ships that were all in rows. But what's unique about it is he had this custom made. His son says it cost his dad about $4,000 to have that ship built. Wow. And it was sitting on his kitchen table. He says, what do I got it, on my kitchen table for? So he came in here, we talked about it. So it's become one of our prized possessions for display. So it survived all of Pearl Harbor, World War II, but got sunk in the Falkland Wars. Wow. Like I said, here he is as an older gentleman. He lived here in Zephyrhills, and here he is as a kid, So we want to make sure we always show you that contrast of what this guy is that you see walking around and what he did when he was younger. Your neighbor has a story. Oh, everybody has a story. Mostly dedicated to the Navy, but mostly dedicated to Pearl Harbor. Because this museum got us, the Pearl Harbor Survivors was our first show that we did, was Pearl Harbor Survivors. We had 15 Pearl Harbor Survivors at our first show. Incredible. Incredible. So it sort of seemed like it got us going of that, where we wanted to talk to real people. Charles McLennan, he lived right down the road. Like I said, he lived in Zephyrhills for I don't know how long. Him and his wife, Agnes. Great, great people. But he survived. He was supposed to go with his buddies here to the Arizona. Well, he got very, very lucky. His brother was on a Helena. So back in World War II, all you had to do was write, can I go with my brother? And they said, yeah, go ahead. So he went off to the Helena, and his two buddies went off to the Arizona, and they're still in the Arizona. So he survived the Arizona because of his brother. Well, the Helena got attacked on Pearl Harbor. His job that day was to put up the flag on the front, the Jack flag. So as he went up there to put up the flag, the Japanese bombed at 7:55. So he's already up there when the Japanese torpedoed his ship, blew him up off the deck. He came down, broke his leg in two places. So he's got a broken leg. He says, within 5 minutes, I'm out of and he's used the term effing fight, because he's just laying on the deck now at this point. He's just watching it all. Can't do nothing about it. His ship's on fire. His brother got burnt all over his body from the same torpedo. So he survived that. They sent him off. He had his leg rebuilt. 2 operations. Well, guess what? They sent him back to the same ship after they refitted it. So he's out in the Pacific. There's 2 ship-to-ship battles in the Pacific. Nasty. One was at nighttime, one was during the daytime. Well, his ship was in the nighttime battle. Got sunk. So here he is fighting at night. Ship gets sunk. He's able to get on a life raft. So he says, as they're going towards an island, he says, all these sharks were all the way around him. He says, we're hitting these sharks with the oars. He says, we're from the Midwest. He says, we didn't know we were attracting them. He says, so it kept on being more and more sharks, just kept on coming from everywhere. He says, so they ended up on an island. 5 destroyers went in there and picked them up and got them off. Well, here he was. So he survived Pearl Harbor, survived the Arizona, survived the sinking of the ship. Well, then they sent him to the East Coast. Well, in between there and the East Coast, they let him have 3 days off and he got married. This is the 10th Mountain Division. 10th Mountain Division. They fought through the Alps of Italy. Senator Bob Dole. He got shot. And that's why he always carried a pen in his hand, because he got sick people asking him questions about his hand. So he carried a pen, so he was always holding something. But this was the outfit he was in. So he was in the 10th Mountain. These guys fought through the Alps. Everything here you had to carry. You had no pack animals. You had no dogs, no nothing. You had to push and pull this sled. This is an original World War II sled. This is a section out of a C-47 World War II aircraft, just like we have outside. So you can see how it's constructed.
Rosie.
And how Rosie did that. Because you have to have one person on one side and one person on the other. They have to work together.
Oh, really?
Yep, you have to have one person with a block and the other person with the hammer, basically, on this side. So they have to work together to get this done. And women were probably the best at, because their hands a lot smaller than the guys. You got your gun. The gun's reproduction, but everything else is real behind here. But this is what a side gunner would look like on your B-17 or your B-24.
Wow.
But you can see there was no protection.
None.
None.
Not much more than sheet metal.
Yeah, that's all it is thin aluminum. Because it had to be light. You had to have your planes light. Your aluminum went directly to aircraft. Everything else, because a lot of your vehicles at the beginning of the war, there was pieces on it that were made out of aluminum for weight. Then all of a sudden there, like in 1941 after Pearl Harbor, maybe early 42, everything went to metal. So this is our Vietnam room. And it all started with one outfit, local high school fighter pilot, and those are his pictures on that wall that he had took himself personally. And that's his whole uniform. He sent us his uniform, and then we worked from there. It came up with this room. And that's what we're doing now is we do honor our Vietnam veterans, and next week we do have our show for Vietnam veterans. But we do have to say thank you and welcome home. Make sure that they know that that's in the past, what happened.
And you have a ceremony coming up. Tell us the date and the time and what might happen.
Next week, March 23rd, we are doing a Vietnam Appreciation Day. So we can say thank you to our veterans of Vietnam. Our World War II veterans are mostly all passed on. We need to start hearing our Vietnam veterans' stories before they pass on and say, boy, I wish we would have asked them questions about Vietnam. Hear their personal stories. So museum starts at 10 o'clock, but our ceremony starts at 11. We'll have the national anthem. We'll have the skydivers jumping in with the American flag. So that's always very patriotic when the skydivers jump in. Of course, that's always by weather. You know, skydivers there, they can't jump when it's too windy. They can't jump when the elevation is the cloud level is low. So that's always, we're about 70%, I think, of the skydivers jumping in. But we can always hope.
What kind of crowd do you expect?
We get a couple hundred people, and we'll have lots more displays outside during that event, a lot more vehicles. We'll have people dressed up, and hopefully we'll have a lot of Vietnam veterans so you can talk to these people and they can tell your stories. That's the main thing, is to have the Vietnam veterans here and saying thank you. Make sure that that was in the past of what happened to them and not in the future, that we appreciate them.
The Vietnam veterans are getting up in age now.
That they are, 70s, 80s. Like I said, we have a Vietnam veteran that's part of our group here, Wayne, and he's got Agent Orange. So you can see with that Agent Orange eating him up. You know, he's got his good days and he's got his bad days, but he's probably down at the VA hospital getting all sorts of shots 3-4 times a week, you know. Because I think they waited too long to try to help these guys out with Agent Orange.
Well, that's our day at the Zephyrhills Military Museum, a small, private, very energetically run museum in Zephyrhills, Florida. A great collection of military equipment, uniforms, and memorabilia stretching back to the Civil War. It's worth a visit. This is Cliff Brock for World Travel Plus.